the Monday Afternoon Roundtable. David Munday, your host, and I got
Little-
Big J.
Yeah, little brother Jason Munday here with it. Hope everybody's doing great out there.
Yeah, Tim's not with us today. He had some work to do on an assignment, so he's not going to be available. But so it's going to be me and you today.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
we got the Garrett man behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But today, what I'd like to talk about is case prep and due diligence in preparing for our investigative cases. And hopefully we're going to have a lot of private investigators listen to our show and try to give them a little, examples of what we do and what not to do sometimes and information they need to gather to help them with their case.
Yeah, and this is a very important part. It's not the most glamorous part of the job.
No,
but it's one of the most important.
I think so.
And you can do a lot of work in an investigation before you even leave the office.
Oh yeah, and the more work you do, the better your case results are going to be, or how successful you're going to be, in my opinion, with your investigation. Yeah. As remind all of you, we have 3 different investigative businesses. I have Blue Line Advantage, Jason has Spartan Secure Solutions, and Tim has 10-Star Investigations. Is that right?
Yep.
3 of us. And we formed one company, kind of an umbrella company, called Munday, Rao and Associates, a private investigation company. And what we do is share resources, manpower, and kind of help each other out. But we take our own individual cases. Yeah. I've got several on the desk right now. You have several. We worked on one with Tim today, a pretty comprehensive case that he's picked up. And Tim just started in the business, so he's just getting his feet wet, and hopefully he'll stay with it. I think he will. But in having 3 different companies, we have a pretty big caseload between the 3 of us, and so it's important to get all the information you can, especially when you have that client there in front of you and during the consultation.
And a lot of time, you've got to remember the majority of the time the client is going through an uncertain or a tough time in their life. So A, they may not be as open as they want to be, or B, they don't do it on purpose.
Right.
They don't so you have to really dig some information out of them. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but it's a necessity.
True, especially when you get into the family law. And that's what I want to talk about first is a family law case example, domestic infidelity type case, because we get a lot of those. And that's kind of what people see a private investigator doing. And that's where you need to get all that information as much as you can up front. And you have to ask some personal questions.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times. And sometimes they'll answer, sometimes they won't. But the more information you get, the better. The key to it, in my opinion, during that consultation is letting the client know what we can and can't do. Sometimes they have false expectations of that we can, put a GPS on any car, that we can go in houses and film and do all these things which we can't do legally, and we don't break the law, and we tell them that from the get-go, and that's in the contract as well. Kind of what the expectations are from the client to the investigative firm, and we always put in there, we might not find an answer, or it might not be the answer that you're looking for. You're kind of working a case like that right now. You put a lot of hours into it, and it looks like the individual's not doing what they thought. Is that pretty much right?
Yeah. I would say more times than not, we usually do find out they're doing what the client.
Probably 90+%
Yeah.
of the time.
And but this situation, and I'm not going to mention any names, but it seems that they're not. I mean, I've got some good surveillance on the person, and it's not showing any of that suspected activity.
Right.
But you still document it as if they were doing it. That way you can you document everything. That way our goal in a case is to find out the truth.
Bingo.
No matter who it benefits. And, even though we work for one side, the client, our job is still to tell them the truth.
And we're not going to set the target up. And let's make sure we let the listeners know. I refer to the individual that I'm watching as the target.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Or the principal. If we're doing an executive security detail, I don't much call them. I call them the principal instead of the target. But target is easier to keep up with. In each of my client data reports, I include the target 1, the basic information, name, race, sex, social security number, all this information I can get from the client from the get-go. The best thing that happened to the private investigative industry is Facebook.
Yeah, I know that's what, and I agree.
Facebook.
Any kind of social media.
Yeah. But we can go on there with these cases and find out so much. You know, where the individual likes to hang out, who his friends are, and a lot of times we can cross-check. And I would say probably over half of my family law cases, the client doesn't know who the other individual is, and that takes even more time. When the client can come in and give us that information, yeah, I know who it is. It's this lady right here. I just need you to show them together, showing affection and opportunity. Okay, that narrows it down quite a bit. What that does is save the client a boatload of money, because time's money in our business. And so if we have that information, it kind of gives us a head start.
Yep.
But more times than not, or about half the time probably, we don't know who that individual is. So we have to start from scratch. But you can get on, or I can, and you can. When I get on Facebook, I start looking at friends, friends that have been recently deleted or taken off or removed, work associates, things of that nature. But
Photographs,
the bomb. We can pull stuff off for our reports and for our associates to show them what the individuals look like that we're dealing with. A lot of times they have photos of their car, of their family, where they go to dinner, what they like to do, the whole 9 yards, especially when they're a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
And most of our targets a lot of times are. And that makes it a lot easier for us, for sure. But their employer, you know, I try to stay away from their employment, regardless of what they've done. Sometimes that's the only place you can get a start.
and sometimes it's where the action's going on.
It truly
Occasionally,
is. Yeah, a little workplace rendezvous. But I try my best not to go on site or on the property. You know, stay on the outskirts of it, especially if it's a controlled access or something of that nature. But I'll try to stay off the property. But you can still get photographs, and you can still do surveillance and watch when they come and go. The criminal record, if the target has a criminal record, I want to know that. If they have any kind of civil junctions filed against them, in other words, if they're in financial straits, but yet they're spending, you know, hundreds or thousands of dollars on girlfriend or boyfriend, and we've seen that as well. I try. Go ahead.
well, and a lot of times that is one of the leading factors that lead the client to come to us, because they'll notice a change in the finances.
Yep.
You know, he's getting a lot of ATM cash withdrawals, or he's, you know, this is odd. He bought a gift card and I don't know where, or things like that.
But one other thing they say a lot of times, Jason, they'll come in and say, well, you know, my husband, you know, he's lost 25 pounds. He's going to the gym. He's going to the tanning booth, or he's getting buffed up, and he's trimming himself all the time. So, you know, that's, you know, okay, every man does that most of the time, but yet that may change their personal hygiene habits when they have these little rendezvous and things. So it's just something that I ask, and I'll ask the client that. Have you seen a change in his behavior? Sometimes they say, yeah, I have, and I didn't even think about that. I always want to know if they smoke and drink, if they alcohol use or tobacco use. Because if you see cigarette butts in the car or coming out of the car and he doesn't smoke, okay, somebody's in the car smoking, or vice versa. It's just a good thing. Most important thing, if that individual owns a gun and they have a concealed carry permit, because I don't want my ass shot. So,
Or violent tendencies in the past. Or,
bingo. What kind of personality do they have? Do they have anger management issues? Have they been fired from jobs for, you know, anger problems at work? I always like to know their driving habits. How attentive are they when they drive? Are they an aggressive driver or a passive driver or a normal driver? To kind of let me know, because all the investigators out there that are listening to the show, they know how damn hard it is to do one-on-one surveillance in a vehicle, in a moving surveillance situation. It is hard.
And you've got some drivers that drive like Miss Daisy.
You do.
And then you got some that drive like Richard Petty.
Right.
I mean, you know,
and those are tough, because it's you have to keep up, and if you just have one car, it's just about impossible to do. And that's why we like to do 2-car moving surveillance and do leapfrog kind of thing if we can. The first thing I do is when the client leaves and I have all this information at my disposal, I do comprehensive background checks on the target and the possible target's girlfriend or boyfriend, to get a better feel of who they are and what they've done. You know, if they have a criminal record, if they have a carry and conceal permit or anything like that. Their automobiles, I want to know what kind of vehicle, because a lot of times the client comes and say, oh, he drives a green car. they don't know if it's a Ford, Chevrolet, whatever. So I always like to have that information available. And I'll try to get a photograph of the car simply for the associate assignment sheet. If we send an associate out, they need to know all this information because they're not going to have it there. And I give them a report with all that available to
Why
them.
don't we explain what an associate is? And
Good.
some might be listening in another state, but in North Carolina, we are private investigators, but a private investigator associate. You want to talk about that?
Go ahead. You probably know more about it than I do.
Each private investigator has to get a private investigator license and a company license through the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can have up to five private investigator associates who have to go through the same background that we do. And once they get certified, they can do anything a private investigator can do except get the business license. But they have to be supervised during so many X amount of hours, the first 40, and then an additional. Anyway, they've got several thousand hours they have to go through before they get full-fledged private investigator license. And a lot of that is supervised by us. That means we have to be with them on that assignment.
Mm-hmm. Well, not necessarily with them all the time, but they report to us.
Yeah. We have to be, the first 40 we do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but then after that, they can, it can be a little different. They can do some certain things, but they're still under our company and under our insurance policy and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're liable for what they do and their actions. That's why we have good associates. But,
yes.
And we check them out before we ever bring them on board. But it's important to have those associates because there's no way in hell that we could do all the work that's coming in without their help and work. And so it just helps out. I always like to know have a photograph of the target, especially if I can't get it off Facebook, I'll let the client send me one, and that way I'll have that for the associate's report. Plus, it helps me to just kind of glance back because a lot of times you're following an individual and you may have brown eyes and brown hair and looks like everybody else out there. So sometimes you have to just take a closer look. Something we talked about today in this preparing for this case that 10 Star is doing. It's going to be a lot of man hours, a lot of work, a lot of people,
a lot of coordination, logistics,
and logistics. It's going to be the two key components to that, and that's part of the due diligence. That's part of preparing for your case. But what we did today is we found each location that's going to be play a part in this case, and there were several.
Yep.
But we look for surveillance positions, at least two in every spot. Or we tried to, and where we can park and conduct the surveillance, which that saves time because now we know where those positions are. We can go straight to those surveillance points and start. And you got to have a surveillance position to where you can get out of the area if you need to, de-ask the area quickly if you have to, and that's happened. I've been blocked in. I've been busted before, and it's scary. But always have a plan to get out. Something else, and I was telling Garrett when we were doing the work today, always have an out as far as a story, what you can tell the individual. If somebody comes up and says, "Man, what are you doing here?" Well, I'm working for a contractor company. We're going to come in and we're working on these power lines or whatever. To have something available where you won't have to stumble through, that you can be believable. I've seen one associate that I used one time, and he was so damn cool. He had fake computers in his car mounted, and he was saying he was doing frequency testing for different power companies and all this other stuff, and they didn't know anything about it. It's, okay. I understand you're having problems with, getting cable service here or satellite service, and we're checking all this. And hell, it was so complicated. They just said, yeah, that's cool. And left him alone. But I've been asked, what are you doing here? Nosy neighbors, community watch.
Get the police
sheriffs,
called on you.
Police are called at times, and sometimes they may be, helpful. Sometimes not. Sometimes they'll tell you to get out of the area, but sometimes we have to. Rental vehicles. Make sure that you have enough vehicles to do the surveillance and do the case effectively. I have a business rental plan to where I can get rental cars quickly, different tags, out-of-state tags on them or whatever I need, and that works out good. And just like the case Tim's doing, we're going to use rental cars in that one to kind of throw the people off a little bit where they can't recognize them so quickly. Yeah, and it's just the more information you get, the better. Talking about notifying the police, there's nothing wrong with calling the police department if you think you can trust them.
Yeah, and I've done that a few times where the surveillance is in a neighborhood and there's not a good spot. So you pretty much, I'll call them ahead of time and say, tell them who I am, give them my my full name and my PI number, give them my car description and my tag number and my phone number to call me back.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have trust in that department. They may know this target that you're watching. She's some little girl that works at the local coffee shop, and they all may know her, so you have to be really careful with that. But if you can feel like that you need to let them know for safety reasons, by all means. And
that's one of the where we're kind of lucky or blessed, however you want to say it. We know a lot of people in the law enforcement business in this entire state, especially this part of the state, where we have contacts where we can kind of get that feel.
And Tim's doing that right now.
Yeah.
He's meeting with a law enforcement officer to let them know what we're going to be doing. So, and you've got a lot of cases going on right now, as do I, but our criminal cases, due diligence in a whole different way of doing things, as far as looking at the case reports, the discovery items from the courts. That takes a lot of time. Just yesterday, went to the attorney's office, and Jason, I think there's 25 CDs in the file to look at. Well, who looks at a CD anymore? I mean, a lot of the counties have what's called liquid files for the courts, and they just download it. It's all online. And now the problem with that is access. Sometimes you'll have access. Well, then it'll kick you out, and it's just a pain in the ass, especially for investigators, because it just is for whatever reason. And
I've printed out hard copies or gotten hard copies on the murder cases. I know you have too on certain ones, and you got them. I mean, you have to have boxes,
thousands of pages.
You had to put them in.
Thousands. Working a murder case right now, triple murder, and that was one with all the CDs, and they're full. And so I'm going to have to go through each one of those CDs to look at interviews, case reports, photographs, polygraphs, everything that goes with it, to where I can prepare the attorney to try the case. And the attorneys of course they look at a lot of the discovery, but it's up to us. That's what they pay us to do, is to look over that discovery and find anything we can in that case to either help the client or show that the investigation was botched in some way, or they should have done certain things during the investigation that they didn't do. We don't find many botched cases anymore, but it happens.
The first thing I do is find out all the charges and look up the charge by statute and look up the elements of each charge.
Right.
And a lot of the elements we already know,
right.
But I like to have it in front of me where I can refer back to it and say, does this necessarily meet that element? And if it's missing one of the elements where it's an and not a or, then it.
And one of the most important things that we do in those cases are witness interviews.
Oh, yeah.
And going back to the scene and talking to people, not only those that are known sources, but the unknown sources that we find during the case. And, of course, the discovery, we have to let them know what we found and provide that information to them. But a lot of times that helps our case, and says, God, we didn't even think about that, or we didn't look there, or this person didn't come forward. That happens a lot, too. They'll talk to us, or they won't talk to law enforcement. And it's just, we're working a case now, murder cases, where they're not going to tell us anything in those cases. And there was how many individuals? Six or seven? Six
that were arrested,
people arrested. And it was a terrible, tragic situation.
And there were like hundreds of people
right
there, and nobody seen anything.
Not a word. And I get that. I understand that, and that's what they're doing. So, but those cases are different. Family law. Now, going into the motor vehicle part of it, motor vehicle accident cases, the civil cases, those are another animal where you have to kind of back up and look at it from a different perspective. What I like to do there is collect as much data as I can about where that collision occurred, the time, the date, the weather, the road surface, the traffic volume, how many collisions have occurred on that road during that period of time.
The driving history of the people involved.
Yes, exactly. And then you can kind of back up from there and build your case from all those things. And you can present your attorney with a good, solid, thorough investigation. I'm not collision reconstruction certified. When I was on the patrol, I managed that section and had some of the best, I'm telling you, the best in the United States reconstructionists. And I was able to watch and learn from those guys kind of what they were doing, guys and gals, how they were doing their cases, and they were the best. Mm-hmm. And so I never had that opportunity to go to reconstruction training, and I'm not pretending to be a reconstructionist. Mm-hmm. And if we need that, we'll hire an engineering firm to come in, and we have. Some of the law firms that I've worked for hired some really good ones to come in and they turn it around.
It's a definite science. I went through half of it, and I was like,
I went thrown out, or did you fail out?
No, I passed.
Okay.
I went through they had it in 4 different blocks. They had basic and intermediate. Mm-hmm. I went past those, and then you had advanced and then reconstructionist, and I was like, I don't know because intermediate was kind of tough.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if I can. I mean, there's a lot to it, a lot. Math, physics, all that.
And it's once you learn that and you have that in your back pocket that you can carry that on the rest of your career. Mm-hmm. Those guys, they have their own business. They're working for pretty big firms where they go out and especially commercial motor vehicle crashes, mm-hmm. and they're writing their own check. I mean, whatever they ask for, they're going to get for the most part. So it's a good deal, but that requires a different due diligence and case prep.
And sometimes that goes, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like you were talking about, sometimes the due diligence is finding out, hey, we know a little bit about this, but we're not an expert, so we need to help you find. We still do it, but we need another resource mm-hmm. to help, and that's where the law firm with the client comes in, and right. We still continue the investigation, but we use them as a tool to do the things we're not either capable or certified, experienced to do.
Right. In my expert witness case load that I have, and it's pretty heavy right now too, but I try to stay within my lane. Mm-hmm. Like if it falls into the accident reconstruction, I'm not. So I say you need to hire a firm that's certified and it's got a good history in doing that, and there's always a group that they use or different attorneys use, and they've been successful. But what I don't like is when another expert comes in and crosses the lane and tries to get in my categories or my
where they're a different
study.
Yeah,
and that happens sometimes, and you have to say, are you an expert in this? Well, no, but I've done this before. Well, hell yeah, I have too. But I'm not an expert until you're proven an expert.
Yeah,
and that's a different animal altogether, and it's it causes some problems sometimes. But anyhow, anything else on case prep?
Just reiterate, the more you work prep wise, I wouldn't say the easier, but you'll have a better result in your case.
Of course, and your billing, you include that with your billing, because that's the
only thing I don't include is the initial consultation.
Neither do I, and a lot of investigators do, and I think that's a plus for us because we're giving that client an opportunity to come in and say, yes, I want to hire them, or no, I want to go somewhere else. And I always leave that open. If they want to go to another firm, that's fine. Mm-hmm. And but it's important to let the client know from the get-go, this is what we're going to do, and we're not going to cross the line. We're not going to break the law. You've worked cases, as have I, where okay, God dang, if I can slip into this place, or if I can do this, which and that it's illegal to do, then it's going to come back and haunt you. So don't even do it.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you start doing little things, running red lights and speeding, and we've all had to do that from time to time to catch up to individuals you're following, but you're setting yourself up for a huge liability issue if you're in an accident. The more we can document too, and we can provide to that attorney, I think sends a strong message to the other side. Okay, this is what they have, and especially on family law cases, and they can, during what's in North Carolina, they have to have help me here, I'm lost for words, the name of it, not discovery, but they have to have a mediation.
Yeah.
God almighty, mediation. And then during that mediation, both sides are in separate rooms. They have a mediator there who's usually an attorney. It doesn't have to be, but most times
Or
it is.
retired judge sometimes.
Retired judges, and what they do is go back from room to room saying, okay, here's what she'll take, here's what he'll take, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and it usually takes all day.
But you can see the mediator going from room to room, going, God Almighty, come on, let's get this over with. But they're getting paid by the hour, so or usually I think, so they're probably wanting to stretch it out. But I used to let them use my office there when I was in Hickory, where they would a lot of times use it and to do the mediation, and it was kind of funny to watch. But during that mediation, the reason I'm talking about that is if your client attorney can show the other side a big 8x10 glossy photo of a hubby going, letting little bubbly blonde in his car at night, going to in a hotel on the interstate. You don't have to give the whole story, but just let the dog out of the house. Say, here's what we have. Do you want to continue? It helps the case. It solidifies the case. It gives them a little room to wiggle, and especially when the finances are involved, alimony or child support, things of that nature. Do you have many child support cases going on?
No, I've had a few. I've got custody cases,
Well,
but
that's
same.
custody, I guess what she said.
Yeah, I guess I do. I'm getting as many custody cases as I am infidelity.
And a lot of times the client says, I don't care who he's seeing. That's really not on. I'm worried about my children being with him, and then he's seeing such and such, or he's leaving the child with his mother or father or babysitter, and then he's going out having a good time. So those are interesting cases too. Got to be really careful with those, but they're interesting to say the least. What else is going on?
Just staying busy. And again, like I said, the more work you put in before you leave the office, the more you're prepared. Another part of due diligence is this sounds simple, but people take it for granted. You got gas in your car. Because
full tank.
Because when you go and start surveillance, you never know where you're going to end up. I always have a way to use the restroom. And it's a pee bottle, pee jug, change of clothes, deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste. If you take any medicine, you need to have a couple of days worth with you.
All right.
Just
a ditty bag.
Yeah, just regular.
Snacks.
And what I do, and this is not a big secret, I keep different hats. I keep different shirts. Like I'll go to Walmart and buy T-shirts, just the plain color T-shirts, different colors, and I usually buy them a size or two bigger, so they're easier to throw on if I have to get out of the car. At least I'm wearing something different than I was. And again, these are not big secrets that people are going to. This is just kind of common sense. People will not look at you unless you give them a reason to look at you.
True, but once they set eyes on you, then you say, okay, I'm burned. Or for example, out of state, nice hotel, it was a big medical conference. I was there for 4 days, and this guy saw me quite a bit, and his girlfriend as well. And the last day, it was getting to the point where I needed that big stake to drive through the heart to where I can close this case out, and I just didn't have it. I wasn't getting it. I'd see them together, but there was no interaction for the most part. They'd go to the conference together. They'd walk across the street together, but they didn't do anything out of the way.
It could be what you saw could be
legitimate.
Platonic.
True, yeah, good word. But I just stayed with it, and I just said, okay, I did the hat deal, but I had to sit in the lobby. I had to wait outside quite a bit just to monitor. But the last day I was there, and this hotel, I mean, it was like I was paying $500 a night. It was expensive because it was a nice city and there was a big event going on, an international event going on. So luckily I got a room where they were staying, but I had to pay premium price. But the last day he brought her into the hotel, and I noticed he was looking around. He was looking for me, I think, because he had already seen me a couple of times. I don't think he put it together, but he was just being cautious. But I had a different hat on. I had a sport jacket. I acted like I was having a get-together that night. Hell, I was registered. I wasn't registered, but it looked like I was registered. I was able to take a photograph of one of the registration name tags, which was pretty complex. It had the barcoding on it and everything. Sent it to my cool son, and he was able to download it and change it. And he gave me a name of, I won't even go into that, but it was a funny ass name. I said, damn, man, why didn't you give me a cool name?
Yeah.
But it was Michael Myers was the name he put on my nameplate. But it worked.
Yeah.
Of course, the barcode didn't work, and you had the barcode every time you went into a session because it was tight, because they were talking some pretty heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah.
And the medical industry is pretty tight anyhow, but I was able to wait to the last minute when no one was paying attention, or when there was a lot of people going in, and I just kind of wiggle in, and was able to get in, saw them kind of playing footsie a little bit, saw them going to the elevator. Here's my chance. But if I missed that window of opportunity, it was going to be over. I wasn't going to get the goods. Got on the elevator with them. I still got the video today, and because the video was like a mirror, and we're going up to the penthouse suite. Well, I wasn't on the penthouse suite, but I followed them up to it because I wanted to know which room they were in and everything, and followed them straight to the room. They were playing grab ass in the hall. I'm behind them acting like I'm talking on the phone. I'm videoing the whole time, and was really able to capture everything. I was able to show that they went into a particular room, and it closed, pretty much solidified our case to where we could at least give a good defense or a good argument that there was infidelity going on.
Yeah.
And he pretty much admitted to it later on. But those that was fun. It was expensive, but it was. I thought I was gonna. When you spend that much money for the client, and the client's paying you that much money, you want to be able to close it out and give them what they need. And I felt, because all those days passed and I just didn't have it, and I felt bad. I said, "Oh God, I'm charging this person so much money, and I'm just not going to have the goods to show." Last minute, but you got to have patience.
Yeah,
is the key, and was able to get the goods.
I've had similar. Well, I've had to go out of state a couple of times, but it's usually on custody cases, and I don't get to go to the high end place. I have to go to Cracktown, homeless shelters and places like that.
You got to be careful with those too.
Yeah, I remember I had to go to Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale's beautiful, but the area I was in was not. But I had to blend in a different, same principle, just a different location.
Other end of the spectrum.
And I would have to talk and interact with homeless people and drug addicts, and just basically talk to people and, for lack of a better word, bullshit with them, and then get them to talk, and then.
Well, that's about what 70% of this industry is bullshit, but it's but it's part of the game.
Yeah,
and you've got to have a rouge.
Yeah,
and me being able, like you had to blend in with that group of people. I had to blend in with those medical doctors.
Yeah, you have to know. You got to have a baseline of what you got to blend into.
Damn Skippy, and you got to have the lingo to go with
it. Yeah, because me trying to blend in Fort Lauderdale is different than you trying to blend in at
a bunch of heart surgeons.
Yeah.
I was hoping no one asked me. Well, I had one gentleman, because I had my laptop, and I was hoping they were going to come through a certain door, so I had the cameras aimed at that, and I noticed he kept watching me. Then he came over and looked at my name, Michael Myers, but he didn't follow up with any questions. But I drew suspicion.
He was thinking industry espionage.
Well, I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
I didn't know how big that industry was. All the pharma industry was there, and
that's a big money, and
I'm going, damn, this is bigger than I thought. But the majority, a lot of people there. There was a lot of from the Asian community. They were from all over the world, and here I was, 6'3", walking around, didn't have a damn clue what they were talking about, but I pretended I did. But I had to run to Office Max, I remember, to copy, because I couldn't find a copier that was working. Well, hell, it was out of paper because there's so many people staying there, and I couldn't in the hotel. So I went to Office Max, was able to laminate my little nameplate. It looked just like theirs. I was so proud of Brandon doing that. He put together a pretty good product quickly.
Yeah.
He sent it to me. I was able to download it, put it on, and it worked. It worked like a dream. Luckily, I wasn't checked. Had I been checked, I'd have just said, "Hey, I'm out." I wouldn't have given any resistance. I would have walked out, but didn't give them any opportunity. So that one was fun.
And that's another thing. You got to know when you got to cut your loss.
Big time.
You got to just, and that happens every now and then. When it does, just
The jig's up.
Yep.
You say, "Yep, well, you got me."
Yeah.
I told one guy one time, he caught me as the target, backtracked on me. Oh no, well, it was the target's boyfriend. It was a female target. I was watching her, the boyfriend. She called him on the phone. I didn't have a good surveillance position. He got me blocked in.
Yeah.
And I just, I've dealt with stupid people before, so I just rolled the window down. He said, "Well, he was mad as a hornet. He's a little bitty shit." So I just let him banter on. And so when he got through, I said, "Hey, dude, you should have hired me. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm watching your girlfriend, and I got you." And that pissed him off. He was mad. He had a pistol in his pocket. I could see it in his pocket. And he was just wanting to pull that pistol out. But I had all I needed on my end, too. And it didn't get to that point. I de-escalated. I said, "Look, man, you don't need to get all excited. Yeah, you busted me. I'm a PI, and this is what I'm doing. Here's my card." And they settled that case because they didn't know what I had.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have a whole lot, to be honest. But
they were scared of what you did have.
They just knew a PI was watching them, so they said, "Oh God, wonder what he knows." So sometimes that's all you need. But the proof's in the pudding, and how much you prepare, and what goes in that final report.
Yeah, and the one thing that I do have an advantage over you is I'm the average height. I'm the average height of the average American male. I can fit in. I look like the average soccer dad. Now I don't blend in at a bar, or not a bar, but like a club. I can blend in at a bar. I can blend in at a church, but I'm not. You're a little taller than that, so sometimes people, notice taller people.
They do, but there's pros and cons.
They're right,
because you can see.
So you can see over
especially
things,
in bars.
Yeah.
When it's loud and crowded, you can kind of just sit there and you can kind of look over people a little bit, and you can see what's going on.
And one thing I've learned from you, from my law enforcement career doing undercover work, I was used to being so close to the action because I would be undercover. I would be in the action.
You'd be part of it.
Yeah, and that's not the way you do it here. I mean, it's you have to give them some distance, and I had to learn that the hard way because I was used to being right on top of them.
Right. And that's common. I mean, and that's part of in teaching our associates. That's why we got to get them out there and say, "Well, you don't follow tail light, bumper to bumper. You got to have some room there, and they may get away. But if you're due diligence and you've done your homework, you're gonna know where the hell they're going most of the time.
You've got it narrowed down to 2 or 3 places, and
you know where he likes to go drink. You know where he likes to hang out. So just go there and work your way back.
And that's happened to me where they get away, and I think, well, I'm gonna try place A. And I go there, and their car's there.
Yep.
So,
and that's a good feeling. When you've lost them, and you go, "Oh, shit, where'd they go?" And then you find them because you've done your homework and you know where they are. Luck plays a big part in this job. Big part. And if you don't have a little luck on your side, it's tough. Especially when you're a one-man show or one-woman show and you're trying to do it all yourself. It's about impossible.
Yeah.
And if it's a simple little quick down and dirty case, yeah, you can do that. But if it has any meat to it and numerous people or a lot of logistics, what we were talking about a while ago, from point A to point B, and a lot of geographic area in between the two places, you're going to have at least 2, if not 3, to do it effectively.
And we're trying to get our associates. We're trying to diversify our associates, men, women, different ages, different race, different background, different look, where they can maybe get in places where we can't, or vice versa. Where we've got somebody, we say, hey, we might not be able to get into that spot, but we got somebody that can.
It's getting close to election time. Are you looking at doing any political?
I am, but not this election season. I've got some stuff I'm going to send out to local parties, each county's party, and say, hey, we do, what is it, opposition research.
Yeah.
And that can be
it's
fun.
It's a big business. You can stay afloat doing that, but then you've got to be able to back up what you got, what you found.
There's a little bit higher threshold of they want more than what just an infidelity or custody. You're going to have to get it a little more
Got to find dirt,
because a lot of times you can have the evidence and people are just not going to believe it. So you've got to have more
Today's time.
evidence than typical.
You've got to be able to show. You got to be able to show. Put that individual, that politician, in an embarrassing situation that they ordinarily wouldn't want to put themselves in.
Yeah, and it's great if you can show a pattern of it.
Yes.
But that's sometimes hard to do.
The key is being able to pull other people in that are either enabling or encouraging or helping that individual. Or participating. That's the biggie. It's participating.
Mm-hmm.
If that individual is married or they've got a lot of baggage or whatever. So
And we could do a whole episode on
we
that.
could.
That's something we might do later on. That'd be a good episode.
It would. But to do that, you got to have people, and you got to spend a lot of money up front sometimes.
And you got to do your due diligence.
Yep.
The more you know the habits of these people, the better you can.
Right. What was the report where the former G7 guy from the UK on Trump that he did in the hotel room in Russia?
In Moscow.
I can't think of the name of that report.
I don't remember that. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember that.
That was political research. I mean, he was able to, I think one party hired him, and it kind of turned once they got started with it, and then it went on both sides. Both sides were able to use some of the information that was found. So, anyhow, a lot of background investigations are done during political season to find out.
Well, we've had a couple local in different counties call and wanted us to run backgrounds on them, to do as much digging as we could find to see
to make sure there's nothing
it's not out there.
Yeah, and sometimes
they won't tell us what to look for.
Yeah,
and I'm not mentioning any names, and I'll say it's not close local, but it was local.
Yeah.
So to me, that's saying they know there's something out there. They just want to see if it's visible to people.
Right. I had an airline pilot one time that called me. He said, "I need you to do a background on me, and I need you." He had a common name, very common, and he said, "I need you." They fired me saying I had a criminal record, a DWI, which I've never had.
But it crossed on the same.
It did, and it was under his name, his everything, and we were able to show it and dig it up. That's when I was working with Gary. We were able to dig deep enough, and we found out it wasn't him. But he couldn't deny. I mean, he didn't have any evidence to support that it wasn't him.
You'll be surprised how many people have the same first, middle, and last name and the same date of birth in the same state.
It's scary. I went to the doctor one time, and I walked in, and they said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "your collarbone's just cracked." I went, I haven't had an injury. I'm here for something else. And they go, "Well, you're William Munday." Yeah. There was another William Munday there at the doctor's office. So that was kind of cool. It was scary, but that's what happens. I mean, because I don't have that common of a name, but it's still, you never know. But this guy, was about to lose his job. They hired him back, of course, after he was able to show. But anyhow, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with a little quick last call and go from there. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you again.